Then I gave up because then I ran out of place. I seem to know almost everybody sitting here, and great to be amongst all old friends, very distinguished Mumbaikars, both on the dais and off the dais, my Rotarian brothers and sisters. I myself am a Rotarian, but a little truant one at that. Don't get to attend too many Rotary functions these days. And all the distinguished advisory board members and the new executive committee members, my hearty congratulations and best wishes to all of you in the 2 years ahead, which you have to bear the very, very important responsibilities that this new role brings to your shoulders. But seeing the quality of participants in this team, I have absolutely no doubt that each one of you will both contribute and successfully steer this organization in the days to come. Just a couple of quick ones, Shekhar bhai. You mentioned about how I landed up staying for dinner. पर मैं समझता हूँ वो तो घर घर की कहानी होगी. कोई आपके घर में फर्क है या मेरे यहाँ पे ऐसे थे? But really great to see an organization completing 50 glorious years in the service of consumers. And to my mind, consumer is king is something which Mahatma Gandhi had articulated many years ago, something which I was just reading in your souvenir. The Bajaj family has also beautifully brought out when they say there are 7 things that will destroy us: wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, religion without sacrifice, science without humanity, and business without ethics. And I must say that it's delightful to see that 50 years ago, such doyens of Indian industry, Indian business, all of them came together on one platform, 36 of them, each one of them recognized for their contribution to India, Indian business, Indian trade, Indian industry. Each one of them almost household names for all of us. And the fact that they all came together on a platform to build what has over the last 50 years been at the vanguard of fair business practices, of ethics in business, of consumer protection, and the fact that they could recognize the importance of protecting consumer interest 20 years before India came up with a Consumer Protection Act. We finally got an act in 86, which Raja probably had to deal with as a consumer court judge for many years. But clearly, it shows the vision, the foresight, and the concern for the consumer that all of these wonderful individuals, the Tatas and the Mafatlals and the Khorakiwalas and the Bajaj family, it's truly great to see that at that point of time, and as was rightly pointed out, the economy was full of shortages. Being a country of surpluses was a very rare and an almost impossible thing to imagine in the 1960s. But at that point of time, to be able to visualize and envisage a future where we have to recognize and respect the consumer's interest is, I think, very visionary and something which we need to compliment. In fact, the organization started, I'm told, as the Fair Trade Practices Association, and rightly on the 2nd of October 1966, the father of the nation's birthday. And I think there could not have been a more fitting tribute to him than setting up an organization to respect the consumer's rights, the consumer's demands, and what is fair for the consumer. So my congratulations to all the founders who are here today with us, and all the past presidents and all the people who have been associated with the organization over 50 years. Shekhar bhai, the other program that I had to go to in Delhi was actually the launch of a new initiative. It was a young makers program, a young makers conclave that was being held in Delhi today. And much to their angst, I had actually confirmed to them, but the Bajaj family has an ROFR on me. So they can always catch me and get me wherever they want, and Shekhar bhai knows that very well. So I think I And I also chose to recognize the wonderful work that started from my home city of Mumbai. I'll probably make up with the Young Makers Conclave some other time. But I really wanted to pay my respects and acknowledge the huge contribution that all of you gentlemen and ladies have done for Mumbai, for the consumers, and for Indian business as a whole. Because ultimately the credibility of business is very closely linked with the customer satisfaction or the service that we give to customers. After all, what are brands? One can do a lot of advertising, and one can what is that, building trust? What is that? Inspiring trust, and we are a family. We can do all advertisements. But if the customer is unhappy and we don't make the customer happy, I suspect we are never going to be able to really get that kind of a brand loyalty, that kind of a brand acceptance that any amount of slogans or advertising can do. In fact, we all talk about Chanakya Niti, we discuss Kautilya, we look at finding parallels from Kautilya's books about what's happening in public life and politics. But probably many people don't realize that the Arthashastra that Kautilya wrote spoke very extensively about consumer rights. There are references to consumer protection against exploitation by traders with respect to quality, with respect to weights and measures, with respect to adulteration of goods. And in those days, we're talking of the Mauryan times, it was compulsory to buy measures for weighing products from a superintendent of weights and measures. So if India could be so conscious so many centuries ago about consumer rights and consumer protection, and he also had in Arthashastra, Kautilya has described in great detail methods by which merchants often cheat consumers. So he spoke about wrong weighment, he spoke about substitution of original products or ingredients with fake ones, things which we are even today grappling with. Even today we have to come up with newer and newer laws. But we really need to only look back in history, look back in our own traditional ways of doing business to see how valuable good ethical business practices are for the success of any organization. And I'm delighted that the code of conduct for business and the norms for ethical practices that the CFBP has articulated over the years, and the dedication with which you have worked to safeguard the interests of consumers and meeting consumers' interests all the way is something to be proud of, something which we all hope you will continue to take forward in the years to come. Any support that we from the government can give, we would certainly be delighted to participate in. In fact, when you talk about shortages and the fact that consumer interest is best protected when there's sufficient availability of products, maybe I can relate to something of my own ministry. Over the years, for 6 or 7 decades after independence, I think all of us had got very used to a country of power shortages and coal shortages. And by and large, coal was like a black gold or something which was very precious for most people. Today there is a situation, and I remember I had just become a minister in May of 2014. Somewhere around August, Rahul Bhai, I was sitting with my whole Coal India management team at the Ashoka Hotel in Delhi. We are not allowed 5-star hotels like Bajaj and Tata's. We have to settle for the lesser government properties. But we were sitting, and it was about midnight in an August evening when I literally wrung my hair and I said, my God, we just can't sort out this problem till Coal India produces 1 billion tons. And it was just an off-the-cuff remark. I had not thought of it also. Company was still in the 500 million ton range. And I just, out of sheer frustration for all the complaints that I was getting out of those shortages, said we need to aggressively plan for 1 billion tons. And I remember I was criticized a lot, both in Parliament and outside Parliament. An illustrious predecessor of mine, who had been Power Minister before me, in a debate in Parliament when we were bringing out the new law for transparent auction of coal blocks, actually told me, look, you're a rookie, you're just new in this field. We've run government for 10 years, we know it better. And here you're talking of 1 billion tons. Do you realize it will need 8% growth every year if you want to produce 1 billion tons and make this country coal surplus? And I remember that debate happened in December of 2014. And when I went back to Parliament in March of 2014, I was happy to share with him that maybe we didn't do 8% in our first year, but we've done 6.9% growth in the first year. And then we followed it up with 8.6% in the year 15-16. So that today, as against 2/3 of countries' coal-based thermal plants, struggling for coal and grappling with shortages, the country does not have a single plant which does not have a shortage of, which doesn't have adequate coal. In fact, from 4 or 5 days average stock, it's now over 20 days. And my biggest challenge, and I'm actually almost on the verge of suspending the Director Marketing of Coal India for failing to be able to sell the coal stocks that we have now. It's a reverse situation. And when I was August की meeting में actually उस समय के Director Marketing Mr. Saxena को कहा था, सक्सेना जी 1.5 साल बाद आप कटोरा लेके सब जगह जाओगे कोयला बेचने के लिए. And literally that is the situation today. I have more meetings in my office. What to do to sell coal faster. And I'm delighted. I've just got a message while I was sitting there and looking up my recent messages. The coal secretary has just sent me a message that they've drawn up an entire program to see how we can completely eliminate import of coal by any state government or state discom in the next 3 or 4 months. So I think we are happier to live in a country of surpluses, and that's how we will then now be able to serve our consumer better. And for us, the consumer is not only the coal buyer, be it a steel mill or an aluminium plant or a power plant, it's ultimately the consumer who has to get it at the affordable price. After all, in the bad old days, coal used to have, I'm told, big boulders when coal was supplied. One of the biggest complaints people had was huge boulders. And on a lighter note, in one of my review meetings, again earlier on when I was a rookie really, in one of the review meetings I said, look people, I can't understand how boulders come into the train wagons when you supply coal. How does the boulder come in? You can obviously take it out at the stage of loading. And I remember the CMD of one of the subsidiaries made a fantastic observation. I've still not got over it. He said, Goyal Saab, हम तो कोयला एकदम बढ़िया लोड करते हैं, लेकिन वो रास्ते में जब कोयला जाता है तो चोर लोग ट्रेन को रोकते हैं, उसमें से कोयला निकालते हैं और ये पत्थर डाल देते हैं. And I was amazed. I said, चोरी तो मैंने सुनी है पहले होती थी, लेकिन मैंने आज तक नहीं सुना कि चोर कोयला निकाल के इतने बड़े पत्थर ऊपर ट्रेन में वैगन के ऊपर लोड कर सकता है. So these are things which only happen when consumer interests become paramount, and that is only possible when the country has surpluses of every product. And this government, I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, is committed that in every product in this country, the country should have sufficient stock, sufficient availability, and that would be the day when consumers can demand the highest standards of quality, highest standards of consumer service. And I'm very confident that given the intense monitoring and effort that the organization, the CFBP, will do for monitoring our work, together we can make this happen. We can ensure that consumer interest is protected, consumers get what they deserve at a fair price, of good quality, at the right time. Once again, my compliments to all of you for the wonderful work that you are doing, and I wish your organization many years of glorious success. I may not be there when you celebrate 100 years, but I'm sure some of the younger people in the room, maybe Yash, will be there to remember the 50th Golden Jubilee anniversary, and at that point of time, reflect on the further steps and the further strides this organization does. 50 years is a milestone year, but it should also be a year when you reflect on what has already been achieved and how one can reorient the organization to make it much more relevant in contemporary times. So I do hope the new team under Ms. Kalpana Munshi and her very enthusiastic advisory board and executive committee will look at what more can be done to make a difference to the people's lives, to the consumers' interests. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you a great year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush. I think that was a fantastic, fantabulous information and message which Piyush has given today. For your information, I wanted to share that Piyush and I, we both come from the same town, Ambala, Kent. His mother is there, and I feel proud of it today. Well, another I think it will not be fair on my part that we had introduced everybody, but I would like to request my family to come over on the stage, and I would like to introduce them to you. My daughters, Shalini Chandra, please hurry. Shalini Chandra, Malini Goel,